and certification and IT standards and all that. What are we doing to get this message outside to the employers, to the agencies? This is our answer to that. I spend a tremendous amount of my personal time. We have a policy group that spends all of their time focused on how can we improve from a policy perspective in the US right now, but we also play in the EU. We're on the board of ESA and some other things over here as well. But from a policy perspective, how do we impact the development of public policy that focuses on workforce, that focuses on training, IT, certification? Quite often it's left off in the company of healthcare and all kinds of other things. So this is something that we take very seriously as a part of our charter. And obviously strong advocacy programs to really advocate for beyond certification, or beyond training to certification. And that quite often there is a tendency, and we are victim of it as well, a very low train to test ratio. All kinds of people. I think there's probably $700–800 million worth of training on CompTIA certifications alone that don't necessarily turn into certifications. So, and yes, I'd love to have a big volume number up there, but the bigger issue is that the body of data suggests that training becomes more effective when there's some kind of culminating credentialing activity at the end of it. Give them a test. If you don't give them a test, the training from all different kinds of measurements, and IDC is involved in a very large study right now in this very subject, that they see a 30 to 40% drop off in the effectivity of the training. So those of us who've spent a lifetime trying to constantly talk about ROI of training, we're running upstream, if you don't get people certified or credentialed at the end. How do we break this up? And I'll talk about these market segments, but we from an association obviously look at 4 or 5 major areas that we try to drive this demand. And this, hopefully, I left this, we have some internal language we use here, and I want to share this with you because we've got a lot of partners here in the room who, as far as I'm concerned, are on the inside of this game with us. And it is, how do we drive this demand? So obviously through organizations, recommendations and mandates. We've got a number of those in the US, in Malaysia, in the UK, the EU. We're adopting international standards kind of monthly now. I won't say daily or weekly, but we're trying to make sure that we are engaged and integrated into those international standards so that the organizations, corporations, international organizations feel comfortable and have a common lexicon that they can speak with us about. So you'll see some of these coming up. Individuals, not a lot of individual certifiers here, but that is the big target. It's getting that message out to individuals that certifications will help them get a job, keep a job, make more money when they're on a job. And that is really what we do when we're trying to get the individual. We have more than tripled the marketing budget at CompTIA in the last 2 years to try to get that message out, and I think you'll see more and more of that in the branding and the messaging that comes out from CompTIA. Oh my. Well, there would be my family.
Great marketing, David.
Great marketing. That's the problem with the floating mouse. So let's talk about our certification strategy, our vision and our strategy. I'll give you the product line in this set, but I did want to talk about this right out of the chute because one of the things that's changed at CompTIA in the last couple of years is the fact that we have moved from a very, I would say, focused, controlled, one level fits all kind of set of certifications to one that is much broader. And so we call this our entry to expert spectrum. That this is exactly where we are going to continue to build out the Professional Plus series that you're quite comfortable with, the Strata series that we started, that we brought to the market at this event last year actually, is starting to gain some traction. As with all things that are vendor neutral and from a trade association, it takes a while to get to the point where you're in the thousands and thousands. Then I'm happy to report that a year later we're starting to get there. So I'm very pleased with what Strata brings us, and that is really a knowledge series. It's not a skill-based, it's not a jobs getter, but it is a first step. Very much aimed at community colleges, polytechnics, high schools. Those kind of career changers who maybe were never in technology before, and they want to see if they have the capacity, if they've got the aptitude to actually get into IT. So that's what Strata was built for. Driven very much by the Oxford-Cambridge group here in the UK, where they said we need a half step to A+. Our pass rates are too low. And when you have a pass rate below 50% or in the 30%, as we did in some of the high schools in the US and the UK, you sometimes lose those students to IT forever. They've tried something that's too hard. They've tried an A+ exam, which the prerequisite is something on the order of 15 to 18 months of experience. And what you do is you give somebody something they just cannot succeed at. And so that's where Strata was born. You're going to see more and more of these because we're looking at strata levels for various levels of management who need to understand things like the cloud, or need to understand open source, or need to understand things that, from a technology perspective, might make a difference in their world. They don't need to be a certified expert on it. So these are certificates at this level. The Plus series, you're very familiar with. What we've also done over here, and I'll talk about some rebranding that we're going to be doing in this space, but the certificate series as a career enhancer, as a differentiator, is another way we're going to offer certificates. Certificates are 100 questions. They tend to be just as long an exam as some of our certifications. We don't go through all of the machinations of psychometric analysis and all those kinds of things, because what we're using them for is to modify the base of certifications that we think is actually quite solid and quite robust. A+, Net+, Security+, Server+. Then let's add some things, and I'll show you in a minute, that modify those, that add to the career expertise level. So that's really what we're doing with those kind of certificates. Green IT is a good example of what we've already put out in that space. Unfortunately, we called it Strata. You'll see us moving away from calling anything on that right-hand side Strata. But coming into the future, you'll see Master Practitioner Series. You'll see us working with some of the computing societies around the world to establish industry-recognized expertise level credentials. One of the things, if you're going to try to make a change, as I've been talking about, in the overall lexicon of IT as a career, you've got to start to have some professional recognition of this level of career expertise, career management at the technical level, at the executive level, and those kinds of things. So we're working with a number of groups who already have floated elements of this kind of a taxonomy. The problem is that we are one of the largest certifying bodies in the world, so let's use the infrastructure that we have at CompTIA to help those associations, those other societies who have done good work in this space. I will also say one of our other philosophies, and you'll see it on the next slide, has been to adopt best of class certifications, content IP from other associations around the world. We don't have to create it all here at CompTIA first, but let's leverage what you have helped build over the last 15 years, and that is a very big, successful, highly tuned certification machine here to actually push this process around the world. So what does this look like in product speed? So our IT Fundamentals Certificate, various assessments, we call them Strata. The Professional Plus series, you'll see us talking more and more about families of them, hardware, software, methodologies, process, okay? We believe that that's how people look at these things, and so some of our marketing is going to take on this tone. But essentially, these are the big ones. A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, Server Plus, some specifics into print and data imaging. We've seen some great growth in those spaces. Don't look for that space to grow by a whole lot coming up in the next couple of years. We think this is a very robust set. It covers the bulk of computing. And what we really need to do is start to focusing on some of these specializations. So IT, Green IT, Cloud, SaaS, Health IT. There are some of those that really are simply a modifier on A+, Net+, Security+, Server+. And if you're going to do all those things out in the cloud, what does it mean? What extra 20 questions do we need to embed into some kind of either certification or add a certificate that can be added on to one of those other certifications? So that's where we're headed with this. And this is a good example of where we are. You'll see some of those jump out in the schedule that I showed here in a couple of minutes. CASP, Certified, or CompTIA, I don't think we've decided what the C means, but it's Certified Advanced Security Practitioner. Spent a lot of time with security analysts around the world trying to understand what that step between Security Plus and CISSP, or one of these other industry credentials, really is. There's a technical body of knowledge that's more at the practitioner level. So they helped come up with the name. They said it's a practitioner level that's got meaning in that space. So CASP will be one of our major announcements coming up next year. We'll be beta testing in the first quarter. It is that, we called it Security Plus Plus for a while. It's that step in between Security Plus and the CISSPs of the world. So you see that coming out. Others in the future, Linux, Advanced Health IT, Storage/Server. We are being driven to this because there are a tremendous number of more advanced level certifications with some of the partner organizations that we have started to do business with this year. They've got things all the way to the architect level, and they are vendor neutral. So CompTIA is, well, rather than having to build this from scratch, we're going to get some of these more advanced level certifications very quickly. And then, as I said, the long-term future is working with some of the larger societies out there, is to start to establish this industry credential. And that we'd love to solicit a lot of your input, a lot of your support and guidance on as we start to build that. Because it only works if the industry starts to gravitate toward it and recognizes it. At Career Path, sometimes I show this one. I've talked to a number of you yesterday and said that if I had one slide to give, I'd probably put this one up there. Because it really shows how our entire roadmap builds to what we think is, you know, a taxonomy of certification of credentials that's realistic, that recognizes the fact that we play in a vendor world, we play with technologies, but we really do see ourselves as a credible source to build the vendor neutral foundation of that. And basically, our strategy here is to allow all the great vendors that have terrific certification programs out there move their certification levels up and up and up, where they don't have to worry about starting from what is a network, you know, what is IP, what is this, what is that, you know, and that's really something that we can help take off the plate for them. That allows them to focus on what's peculiar, particular, or fantastic about their software, and speeds up this whole process. Our product strategy, 4 major areas going forward. Testing methodologies. You've seen the testing kiosk out here from Innovative Exams, just one of a number of different kinds of testing modalities that we are working with great partners in Vue and Prometric and BizSmooth and Certiport. All of these groups have, I think, a commitment to bringing new technologies to how we do this business. We will not survive, we will not grow, we will not optimize if we continue to think that everything has to come to a center and sit there and take an exam that has been sent down as a giant form that sits there and somebody goes and ticks all the multiple choice questions. We're going to be changing some of those things. We're going to be changing how we do some of our testing, performance-based testing. The CASP will be our first performance-based exam, and that will be out sometime in the spring. Interestingly, all of our testing providers have performance-based utilities for us to exercise. Now, are they the ones we're going to use forever? Maybe not. I encourage all of the technology providers to keep pushing and keep pushing the envelope. Integrated product release milestones. You're going to see all of this, and hopefully what this does is helps those of you who are CAP partners engage with us more easily. So you understand when things are coming out, when the announcements will be there, when all the supporting materials will be there. Creative pricing and business models. You might not think price increases are terribly creative. I don't either, but they are a necessity of life. We haven't raised our prices in 3 years. So we will have a price increase in North America for sure, E2C across the board. We are going to get much more focused on how we do piloting around different kinds of packaging. And volume discounts is one, but bundled discounts is really where we're trying to look at how do we start to close that train to test ratio. That's what we've got to do, you know. And the only way to do that is to get somebody to commit to going through to a whole certification when they start the training process. IT Pro is another very important piece. I'll talk about that in services at the end. The important piece up there is that we are going to be moving this whole kind of mentality